Welcome to the Digital Academy of Enriching Arts. Here, we cross the boundaries of time to explore the greatest triumphs of human creativity. But to keep this journey going, we need a little help from you.
If you enjoy diving deep into the masterpieces of literature and philosophy, be sure to hit that like button. It helps us bring these timeless stories to more people. To ensure you never miss our latest explorations into the breathtaking worlds of classical music and fine art, hit subscribe and ring the bell. And if you want to help us build a community of true art lovers, share this channel with your friends. The Academy is always accepting new students.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most recognizable, iconic masterpieces in human history, Johannes Vermeer's The Milkmaid. But I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you are going to see this quiet, familiar image in a completely different light. We're going to break down the history, the frankly staggering artistic innovations, and the profound hidden philosophy tucked inside this single frame. So what is actually happening here? At first glance, it seems pretty obvious, right? It's just a woman working. It's quiet, it's simple, it's everyday life. But what if I told you that almost everything we casually assume about this painting, literally right down to the name it's famous for, completely misses the mark? We really need to challenge our initial assumptions today, because this is not just a picture of a chore. It's a highly calculated, absolutely revolutionary statement. To get our bearings, let's just lay out the basic facts. This piece is universally known as The Milkmaid, or De Milkmaid. It was painted by the legendary Dutch master Johannes Vermeer right around 1657 or 1658. That timing places it squarely in the magnificent era we call the Dutch Golden Age. And if you want to see it in person today, it hangs in the Rijksmuseum over in Amsterdam. Okay, so those are the solid baseline facts. But as we're about to see, the deeper mysteries of this painting start with that very first line, the title. Let's get right into section 1, a masterpiece misunderstood. Here's the first big twist. Despite its world-famous title, the subject we're looking at isn't actually a milkmaid at all. She's a kitchen maid. Historically speaking, a milkmaid was a very specialized worker out in the fields actually milking the cows. But the woman Vermeer painted? She's a domestic servant inside the house. And she isn't just randomly pouring milk into a bowl, she's right in the middle of executing a very specific recipe. She's likely making bread pudding, repurposing those chunks of stale, crusty bread you see sitting on the table. It's a remarkably specific slice of domestic reality. What's really brilliant here is how Vermeer is completely subverting the utterly disrespectful artistic stereotypes of his time. In 17th century Dutch art, if you saw a maid in a painting, it was basically a punchline. Maids were almost always depicted as lazy, comedic, or romantically promiscuous. They were painted in the middle of incredibly chaotic, messy kitchens or caught sneaking around in illicit affairs. But Vermeer takes that trope and completely flips it on its head. He takes a lowly domestic worker and treats her with profound respect, literally transforming her into a monument of virtue and intense, unwavering focus. Which brings us to section 2, the Golden Age context. To understand why this matters, we have to look at the era that birthed what's known as genre painting. The Dutch Golden Age was defined by this booming, newly rich mercantile middle class. And unlike the rest of Europe, where ultra-wealthy patrons were commissioning massive religious scenes or epic, sweeping mythological battles, these newly wealthy Dutch merchants wanted something different. They wanted art that actually reflected their own daily lives, their homes, and their specific cultural values. They wanted scenes of everyday domestic life. Vermeer delivered exactly what they wanted, but he elevated it to a level absolutely no one had ever seen before. Let's look at exactly how he pulled that off in section 3, Vermeer's artistic innovations. Vermeer took this incredibly simple, everyday kitchen scene and turned it into an undeniable masterpiece using 3 distinct, groundbreaking artistic techniques. We're talking about his point-to-lay technique, his monumental composition, and his use of insanely luxurious pigments. First up is his pointillé technique. Vermeer was an absolute magician when it came to capturing the optical effects of light. If you were to walk right up to this painting and inspect the crusty bread and those woven baskets, you'd see they're dotted with these tiny, sparkling points of paint. It's almost magical. This specific technique mimics halations, which are these little glowing halos of light. And here's the crazy part. These halos are exactly what you would see if you were looking through the lens of an early optical device called a camera obscura. Historians heavily suspect Vermeer actually used one to compose his paintings. He was literally painting light the way a camera sees it centuries before photography was even invented.
Next up is his composition, specifically his use of a wonderfully low vanishing point. What this means is that Vermeer deliberately positions us, the viewer, slightly below the maid. We are quite literally looking up to her. When you combine that low angle with the solid, heavy, triangular shape of her body and the table she's working at, it gives this humble servant the imposing, statuesque gravity of a classical monument. Just think about that. He gave her incredible physical weight and undeniable importance simply by deciding where to place our eyes.
And that beautifully sets up our third innovation, the sheer, jaw-dropping cost of the paint itself. We have a shocking juxtaposition happening here. You've got this humble, lowly maid, but she is painted with the most lavish, wildly expensive colors available at the time. Her apron? That is pure ultramarine, a pigment created by literally crushing up lapis lazuli gemstones. Her bodice uses this incredibly vibrant, expensive lead tin yellow. By using these ultra-luxurious pigments for a scene of such humble origins, Vermeer is physically and artistically elevating the inherent dignity of this domestic worker.
Okay, so let's pause and put this all together. We have a kitchen maid painted with the reverence usually reserved for a saint, using the most expensive materials on earth. What is Vermeer actually trying to say here? Now that we've admired the masterful physical execution, let's peel back the final layer to explore the profound philosophical meaning behind all these choices. That takes us to Section 4, Philosophy and Hidden Symbols. The massive, overarching theme here is what we call the sanctity of labor. This painting is essentially a stunning visual embodiment of the Protestant work ethic of that era. That ethic strongly held that honest, daily labor wasn't just some boring chore, it was actually a legitimate form of spiritual devotion. Just look at her face. She is completely, utterly absorbed in the careful act of pouring that milk. Through Vermeer's brush, this simple, messy kitchen is transformed into a sacred space, and her mundane chore becomes a deeply quiet, reverent meditation.
But Vermeer also knew the real world is complicated, right? Notice the obscure items hidden down near the floor in the bottom right corner of the room. Along the baseboard, you'll see Delft tiles depicting a figure with a walking stick, and crucially, Cupid, the god of love. And sitting right in front of those tiles is a foot warmer. In 17th century Dutch art, a foot warmer was a very well-known symbol for female desire or a longing for warmth and romance. By sneaking these elements in, Vermeer is absolutely acknowledging that yes, romantic and base desires do exist in the real world. But the real genius is where he places them. That represents the triumph of dedication. By physically shoving those romantic symbols of desire near the floor, pushed all the way back into the background, Vermeer makes an incredibly powerful statement. He's suggesting that while, sure, these base desires exist, the maid's unwavering concentration and her pure dedication to her duty utterly triumph over them. She isn't distracted. Her focus on her work is absolute. I want to leave you with this final, beautiful paradox to chew on. The milk is eternally pouring in a dynamic stream, yet the room is completely silent, still, and frozen in time. This right here is the ultimate genius of Vermeer. He captures the illusion of time, creating a profound reflection on the eternal present. He takes a fleeting, entirely mundane moment, just a couple of seconds of milk falling from a jug, and locks it into a state of permanent, glowing perfection. So the next time you look at the Milkmaid, I want you to ask yourself, what other fleeting, mundane moments in our own everyday lives might actually be worthy of being frozen in time forever? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today, and as always, keep looking deeper.